Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Engine House. Couple things here. The Green Pastures Dairy scratch build I was working on, I'm done with it. It wasn't coming out the way I thought, and it wasn't looking good, and I was getting frustrated. And I put it aside and focused on the diner project, and I just don't. I'm not happy with the way that the dairy Green Pastures Dairy is coming out. So that I'm ending that. I'm looking at a couple other options, a kit or something, a kit that I can modify to for my needs. This one just wasn't working, and there's no harm in saying I'm not doing this anymore. If you're in the same boat and you're frustrated with something, and it's just not coming out, don't push it. Just walk away. Okay, you can always do something different later. Not a big deal. I put some time. I put some time into this. This was kind of a scratch build kit bash thing. I've got a few hours into that, and it just wasn't working out. Yeah, so there's no harm in just saying I'm done, and that's the way it is with that. I'm done. It's not happening. So I'm moving on to other things while I decide which direction I'm going with Green Pastures Dairy. In the meantime, I have an old caboose post-war, and I have the cab off of a crane tender car. And I ended up with two crane tenders. The reason being is this one, the roof was broken at the end off, and there was no way I was going to be able to repair it. And it was missing the chimney. And of course, the caboose was also broken, and I just didn't know what I was going to do with them. I really didn't want to throw them out. So I decided, let me cut the stairs off of either side of this. Let me cut off what's left of the damaged roof. And I decided to build a little hobo shack or a hobo palace, if you will. So I started working on this, and I've gotten this far. I glued them together and shot the whole mess with red primer. Right here, little rattle can of red primer. That's kind of the base of that, or gray, or primer is the base. Everything I use, and then I go from there. And then I started painting it up, and I started rusting it up. You can see some of the rust here as we go around on the metal. This is metal. This, after I'd shot the paint on it, I realized this was supposed to be wood, but it's red, and so I decided to start weathering it up. Okay, and it's a little weathered here, you can see. And also, because this is going to be sitting, directly on the ground, if you've ever seen a wooden fence, an older wooden fence that's starting to dry rot, and it's right on the ground or close enough that the ground is built up to it, and it happens, you'll notice they start to mold a little bit and they get green at the bottom. So we got a little bit of green going on here around it. It's very faint. I don't know if you can see it in the picture, in the video, but it's very, very faint. And that's just to simulate, a little mold growing up the side. We have board here across, and a little piece of wood in there to cover the broken window. They don't use this door. And over here, right here in the corner, you can see that window was almost covered up by this. So I just put a piece of wood over it, weathered piece of wood. And this one, of course, it did not come with a chimney, but the hole was there. So I just covered it up with a little piece of tar paper, you can see, and the paper's curled a little bit. It's a whole piece of rotted wood up there. This one, there's an indent there for a chimney, and you can see right here, but they never punched the hole through for some reason. I don't know why. So I covered it up with a piece of black construction paper, and made to look like tar paper. And then, of course, an old weathered piece of wood here. And there's going to be some more junk and debris laying around. One of the things, of course, is weathering on anything you want to weather. You start light to dark, using at least three types of different, paints. You want to give the thing some depth. So I started on that with light gray, or just actually gray, and then I went to dark gray, and then for this, that's where I left it. I already had red primer shot on it, and I just didn't want to go any further with that. I did dry brush it with black. The whole thing has been kind of dry brushed with black. And I used a little bit of brick red for around where these letters are. And you can see there's part of the letter there on this side. And of course the numbers. And I tried to dab them over. And I used grass green for the mold that's down at the bottom. And I used, this one is burnt umber, and it's very, very hard to see on red. It looks closer to dirt than it does rust. On any other thing, you can make it look rusty. So I did use a lot of burnt sienna on things on the roof, as you can see. It's a little rusty there, trying to rust it up. And you can kind of see some of it. The handrails are a little rusty. On red, it's harder to see. And then, of course, I gave the whole thing a dry brush with some black. I still have to add the windows, which we'll do, but I wanted to show you how I do. There's a piece of wood. There it is. How I did these. They're kind of rotten boards, and if you want to do some old boards for a fence, let me show you how I did these. I'll set this aside, and we're going to find I'm going to get my grandpa glasses out here. Now, I have that other tool that I showed in another video to make for a balsa wood in this, makes nice straight cuts, which is great if you're doing it, okay? But this is rotten wood. This is just scrap wood laying around. So the cuts don't need to be straight. They don't need to be anything fancy, okay? They just need to be, however width you want, depending on your scale. You can do. And I'm freehanding this because, again, it really doesn't matter much what we got going on here. Let me get this out of here. There we are. This back up here. And the lid, the cover for this always seems to elude me. There it is. Rolls away. And you always, if you have a cover, make sure you put it on. You really don't want to be picking this thing up. Accidents do happen. Happens to everybody. But there's no sense in tempting fate, right? Then what I did is, and I broke that off, which again, doesn't matter. This is rotten wood. So then what I do is I take this, okay, and I have two different blade settings. One's a little coarser than that, but this one works pretty good for this. And we want to take this, and you want to scratch this up side to side. Whoops, flipped it completely over. Get this. And if you want to, you can see, okay, and you want to get, let me put a little more scratching on this. It doesn't matter if you've got pieces flaked up like I do on this, because that's kind of what you want. You can see that. I don't know how well. Let me take these off so I can see. There we are. Let that thing focus a bit. Shut this off. There. You can see how that is scratched up I hope anyway. It's kind of hard to see in the video how things come out. Turn this on so I can see again on the workbench. We're going to grab a brush and we're going to grab a paper towel. And I said, you know, I wasn't going to shoot too many more videos for a while because I'm busy on the house, and I have been. And being disabled, finally, my wife just said, you need to take a break. So I decided I'd do some of this, and then I'll get back to work on the house. Things are progressing at a pretty good rate. It's still too cold. We went from like 80 degrees one day and in the 60s down to back in the 40s. Basement's still too cold to do any work down there for any length of time. I am patching the damage in an earlier video when I showed my new layout and how it was coming along. I showed there's some damage in one corner. Previous owner, somehow that got damaged. I don't know how, but the previous owner thought for some reason, or somebody told him that spray foam insulation would be great down there, and it's not. Okay, it's no substitute for mortar. A can of spray foam insulation runs $7 or $8, a big can. A 80-pound bag of mortar runs $10. It really, and of course, mortar holds stone better than spray foam insulation. So I've been digging out a lot of spray foam insulation down there and some stones that have come loose because they should have been mortared the first time. And I've been doing that. So hopefully, I mean, I'm doing it when the weather is a little warmer than it has been recently. So I've been taking a bit of a break on all this stuff. And let's get back to this and get a little paint on there. And we don't care at this point how thick we want to get. And we're not really concerned about covering the whole thing. Okay, first, I'm going to dry this real quick. Okay, and since we're just using gray and more gray, I'm not going to go clean the brush out. I'm not. It's not really. We're using just different grays here, and now we're going to use the dark gray. Right? Yeah, the dark gray is the next one. And we'll just and I don't know if you're going to be able to see much of a change there, but it is a little darker. So we've got that. And then we just want a little, just dry brush. Okay, and there that is. Now, the other thing, if you want to add a little moss and mold to it, say it's starting to mold, you can pick a green you like. I have about 3 or 4 different kinds of green over there, so whatever you like. Let's not do that. Let's do this instead. We're gonna dip this. We're gonna tip this. We're gonna get just a little bit on here, and then we're gonna. And this is going to be a little harder to see. Apparently, I need some more. There we are. And then there we have a little mold, mildew, whatever you want to call it, moss growing on the board. When that dries, it'll fade about a little bit. Okay, and that's how you do that. And apparently I need to use a toothpick here. And it's the one thing when you don't use the paints enough, they start getting a little bit of a thing there that I start developing a skin. And this is getting it inside. There we are. There. Okay, get a little air getting in there, so I'm going to have to take care of this. On railroad stuff, I was on another group the other day. I'm on Blue Sky, by the way. And if you're on Blue Sky and you're interested in model railroading, if you look, there's a bunch of model railroaders there. And the hashtag, of course, it's similar to Twitter. The hashtag, of course, is model railroading or model trains. And find me there. Excuse me. One of the guys there that we follow each other, I had mentioned that he had shown a video it's a training video that they use for training for derailments, and it was an old locomotive that was laying on its side, and he was showing somebody in the video. Whoever was shooting the video was showing the components you don't normally see. Hopefully the locomotive is upright and you're not seeing, if you're seeing the undercarriage, something's wrong. But they use that for training. And you can see the electric motors down there. All wheel sets have electric motors on them. And I happened to mention to him, I happened to leave a comment, not on the video, but on the guy that posted it, that I have hauled those motors, as well as the cabs. There was a place in Washington State, out near the coast, that built replacement cabs for those diesel engines. Excuse me. And they're oversized. They're wider than a trailer. They're wider than 8.6. Anything wider than 8.6 is an oversized load. And I did a lot of oversized stuff. They're not that much oversized, but they're enough. And you have to get the permits and the whole 9 yards. I did that stuff for 25 years. Anyway, I've hauled those cabs to just east of Boise. I don't remember the name of the town. It's a few miles east of Boise, that rebuilds locomotives there. They have a whole area with locomotives, and they rebuild them, refurbish them. I've also hauled those electric motors for the wheel sets. I forgot where I picked them up. God, it's been 100 years. Seems like since I hauled those things. But I brought those. I brought those out of Canada. I was up in Canada and loaded a load of those electric motors out of, let me see if I can remember the name of the town now. Prince George, I believe. Prince George, BC. They have a locomotive shop there. I believe it's Prince George. Pretty sure. I've been so many places in British Columbia, I can't remember. And a lot of them were Prince something, Prince Rupert, Prince George, Prince something or another. There's a lot of them. But anyway, I hauled them out of Prince George, BC, down to that same facility outside of Boise. I think they refurbish them down there. They rebuild them. I'm not sure. I hauled them in and delivered them. And then I think I've hauled 2 or 3 of those cabs out of Western Washington down to that same facility for locomotives they were rebuilding down there. So that's pretty cool. He said, you maybe should talk about that. So here I am. I'm talking about it. It's not often you get to do stuff like that. When I hauled a lot of different odd freight as a truck driver, and you haul a locomotive cab, and you're a train buff. It's kind of pretty neat. I've had people take pictures as I'm going down the road, and the electric motors weren't quite as nobody really knows what they are when they're sitting on the deck. They didn't have the wheels on them. It was just the motors, and they were tied down, and they had the axle sticking out either side. Nobody really knew what those were, but the cabs certainly got quite a bit of looks whenever I was hauling those. So hauled quite a few interesting things over the years, but that was one of the railroad related things I did that was pretty cool. I think I did it 2 or 3 times. Anyway, this is what I'm working on now, and it will be, I still have not, this will be out before the presentation happens, and I will be bringing this as well as Luke's Diner to the presentation, among other things. There's a few other, I'm getting stuff still together. I've got a whole new presentation. What we did was we combined the first one with the new one, made it longer and better, much better. If I have a link to where people can watch, I'll post a link and you guys can watch it if I get a chance before the presentation. If not, I will be posting the presentation. It'll be filmed. My lovely wife will be filming it, and I will also have access to the tape. Their program. They're going to be video tape. It's a system I'm not familiar with. I mentioned this in the last video. They'll be doing their own, and I'll have access to that, so I'll be able to decide or use both, and we'll edit it to match and make it a really good presentation. So that'll be coming out on the 21st of June. But in the meantime, I'm puttering around here and I'm still getting stuff ready for that. So this will be coming out hopefully before then, and I should have this done. And if I get a chance, I'll shoot another video of this a little further along in the build. We'll see what happens. Anyway, if you like the video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and leave a comment. I always like comments, always love them. I always answer them when I get them. So from the Crown of Maine up here on a cold, damp day, bye for now.